This is The Culture.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave Podcast. We are back to talk about a Netflix original film that is trending right now. It's a foreign film. It's called Society of the Snow, which was directed by JA Bayona. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined by Liz Seiko.
Hello, everybody.
And I am also joined by Zach Miller.
How's it going?
So this was a film that you guys kind of put me on to. I'm the last one to see this. Mm-hmm. I watched this the day of our recording. But it's based on a true story about a crash that happens in 1972. A very famous, national, a lot of people are aware of what this crash was. Mm-hmm. Of these Uruguayan rugby players who are traveling to Chile for a rugby match, and their plane crashes, and they have to survive throughout that in harsh conditions in the Andes Mountains. Really interesting film. I was really surprised with the fact that this is their most watched foreign movie on Netflix. But foreign stuff really finds an audience on Netflix, which I really appreciate. Squid Game is the obvious not exception of the rule, but the one that blew up. But I was happy to hear that this movie was getting attention. Liz, what are your first thoughts on Society of the Snow?
Well, I'll give a little bit of background of how I came to watch this. So pretty much I just put it on because I saw that it was popular on Netflix. Zach said that it was actually good. So I was like, okay, let me watch it. I really didn't know anything about it. But as I'm watching this film, I start to be like, wait, why do I know this story very well? And then I realized that I had seen the original movie that came out in 1993 called Alive, and I saw it when I was young. So I was just remembering the actual story of what happens, and we won't get into spoilers right now, but the extent that these people have to go through in order to survive. And so I had already known the story, but it definitely was a different film compared to the original. The original, it's completely in English, and it is a fully white cast. So as we were talking about before, DJ, like you said, they kind of Hollywoodized it and just made it accessible to the United States, I think, at that time. So this film, Society of the Snow, definitely comes at it from more of a perspective from how the story actually happened, and to give some respect to the actual people whose lives it affected and the people that passed away. Overall, I thought it was a very intense film. I kind of honestly felt nauseous at times, which I don't know if other people felt, but I was definitely it's not a film that you're snacking. Well,
it's a fair point.
It's not a snacking film. But yeah, I thought the tech and the production behind it is beautiful. I kept noticing the sound work that they were doing was a big standout for me. I could see this getting some attention from the Academy for maybe sound nominations. There's the scene of the plane crash for me was very intense.
It was incredibly done, I thought.
Incredible. I'm sure we'll talk in detail, but that was definitely a standout for me. I also think that the reason it's doing so well, being a foreign film on Netflix, is two things. I think that this is a foreign film that you don't necessarily have to be listening to the dialogue to be able to see what's happening, because the visuals are so effective, and it is such a visual story that you kind of know what's happening without actually having to fully understand. Two, this is a thing that Netflix does. Did you guys watch it with the English voice over, or did you watch it in the original Spanish dialogue and then English subtitles?
I never watch anything dubbed. So I watched it in Spanish or with the English subtitles.
Zach, what about you?
Yeah, I don't like when they dub over stuff. So I just did the natural Spanish language and then the captions.
Because did you guys notice, or maybe it's just my Netflix, but when you started it starts with the English voiceover.
Mine didn't do that.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty positive.
Really? Because so that's what Netflix does, is a lot with their foreign language films, is they will automatically have it preset so that it's the English voiceover.
That's not something where it gets algorithmically changed, you don't think? Have you done that before, where you've watched a foreign film and you watch it dubbed?
No. See, I don't like it. And unless somebody in my family is like using my account and just like is watching foreign films dubbed over, but like I don't. And so every time I start a foreign film, it's always in the English voiceover.
Okay.
So then I always have to manually go and change it to the original like original language. And so a part of me thinks that maybe that's why it's also doing so well with Netflix, is that they're really pushing the English voiceover, because I know that a lot of not cinephiles like us, they tend to not love foreign films.
They don't want
because
to watch things.
They don't want to watch
language.
subtitles.
They're lazy.
Yeah. And so they do listen to the English voiceover. And so if they're marketing it with that, that could help it. But anyways, I just went on a tangent.
No,
but
not a
those
tangent.
are my
It's
first
good
initial
opening
thoughts.
Zach?
Yeah, I love this movie. There's a lot of great messages about like just the human willpower to survive, and you know what they had to go through in these harsh circumstances was unbearable. So I did not know about the cannibalism side of it. I just saw the trailer. Well, I didn't watch the trailer. I just saw like a preview, and I was like, oh, plane crash movie, like survival movie. I've seen a couple of those before, so I wanted to watch it. And I thought it was really well handled for the subject matter, and just really it gave that graphic material, but it didn't feel like it was overbearing, and it didn't take away from the narrative. I think it was always about their initiative to survive, like they had to do some pretty horrible things, but they ended up getting out there because they were a team, and they used their self-discipline as a unit to try and get through harsh circumstances. But yeah, just the lengths that they went to overcome what they did was pretty unbelievable. And I thought the filmmaking complemented that really well. So I hadn't seen the original version like you did. So the whole time I was thinking to myself, I was like, I don't think the other one is better than this, like just off the top of my head. Like I love Ethan Hawke, but I just didn't think that they balanced the ensemble as well as they might have, at least. And then just the filmmaking felt better and more like natural. So I mean, just off of my thoughts, but yeah,
I feel similarly to what Zach said. I didn't realize that this story had been told so many times through either documentary or, like you had said, the 1993 version of Alive. And then I see on the notes that there was also an original one that came out in like the 70s that kind of chronicled this in a scripted way. So that in and of itself, it's hard because there's always going to be comparison. But I do think that, in my personal opinion, the way that they tackled it, and JA Bayona being a Hispanic filmmaker and really pouring his all into what this was with a native cast, I think is really important to the authenticity of the story, and also adding that extra layer of like realism and really putting you within the situation of what happened. I echo what Zach said. I like really, really, really like this movie. Like I was surprised with how much I liked it. I knew I based on what I had seen, like the cinematography is phenomenal in this movie. And I really, really hope it gets nominated at the Academy Awards for a lot of different things. But I mean, it's a tough year, and it came out January 4th, and we're big proponents of the Iron Claw here, and that's not getting really anything. I mean, fingers crossed. By the time this episode airs, the Oscar nominations have already been out. But I really, really enjoyed this movie, and I agree with you. It's something that it's not a comfortable viewing. Like, as we'll get to scores obviously at the end of the episode, but like this is not one I'm probably going to return to many times in my lifetime. But it's a movie that I really respect, and it's incredibly visceral. Like going through this with the ensemble, and I love that I had found out in some of my research that a lot of the actors in this are like first-time actors or have not done much of anything. And I think that's a standout of the movie. The fact that we'll get into specifics, but there's not really a lead character in this. The lead character is the team itself and the camaraderie and the fraternal nature that comes with them. So yeah, those are opening thoughts for all of us, and I feel like we can't do too much else without spoiling. Probably, right? So if you guys are checking out our review here, please check out Society of the Snow. It's available to watch and stream on Netflix. You guys can watch it right now. If you guys don't want to be spoiled, then come back and watch this when you guys are done watching it. But if you guys don't really care and you want to hear our opinions, stick around because we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So this movie it starts off where we are in Uruguay, and it shows you the scene of Roberto, one of the characters, who is they're playing a rugby game, and he gets the ball and he refuses to pass it, and that actually plays a major part going forward in the story. But some of the members of the team are not sure if they want to take the long flight to Chile from Uruguay to play in this this game, this rugby match, and basically all of them finally get convinced, and you have the whole plane is filled, and they have to fly around the Andes Mountains to try to get to where they need to get to, so they're not sucked in. And
which is crazy, first of all.
Crazy.
Like, that's not something that I ever knew.
No, it scared the shit out of me, frankly. Like, I'm like, I haven't watched a lot of movies where there are plane crashes or shows, but this, because of the filmmaking aspect of it, which, Zach, I definitely want you to talk about,
Yeah.
but it immediately immersed me within the claustrophobia and the fear that came with these performers. Like, the crash scene itself is so well executed, but terrifying.
It's traumatizing.
It is. It's incredibly traumatizing.
I think it's interesting too, because so I'm just trying to think back on like other films that have plane crashes, and just from what I always picture, it's the direction is typically, and like Zach, you can probably also talk about this, the plane is crashing, you see the panic of everybody putting on their seatbelts, the plane crashes into the ground, and it's black. They cut to black.
Or it's like quick cuts within the plane very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly.
And then it cuts to black.
And then it cuts to black, and then it's like slowly opening up to the people like waking up, or like they can't hear, and then them slowly realizing. This is, they show the entire crash from inside the plane, and like they show bones breaking, they show people colliding into each other and getting crushed, and it was very jarring. It's intense. And like, I don't know about you guys, I watch a film, like anytime I'm flying, I watch a film. I do not recommend this if you are flying. Do not watch this on United. Do not watch this anywhere. I don't think they should
even have the ability to offer a film of this nature
100%.
on
a plane.
Which is sad to say, because I feel like this is a movie that is still so well, like, a fantastic movie.
Yep.
Just don't offer
I could just see somebody being like, oh, Society of the Snow, I've heard it's great. Let's download it for the plane ride. No, don't. But anyway.
It's about a team of rugby players.
It's
this is so nice
movie.
and warm in the beginning.
Camaraderie.
Oh, they're going to go beat the Chile team. Oh, it's going to be great.
My God.
No.
Zach,
yeah,
I want to know your thoughts on the crash in particular, and we'll go into other specifics of the film. But that, from a filmmaking perspective, how did you feel about it?
I really liked it. I kind of what you guys were saying. The choreography of it was really good, because you have like the cabin gets like the suction, which happens a lot, and then the back of the plane just gets gone. Like 12 people just gone. I mean, the one guy literally changed his seat.
Yeah.
And like, I think that actually happened because the survivors were very involved with it. So I think that happened. But yeah, like he just literally changed his seat. And then you're thinking about, wow, that guy just got sucked out because of that. And then, once they hit the snow, all the chairs fall forward, like 10 people get crushed just there off of impact. And, yeah, there, like everything was so crazy. Like, and then it was so disorienting when they all woke up. Like everybody was either like bloody, or they were looking at dead people around them. And then they're all like, these are all like brothers or close friends in their life too. I think they did a great job showing just how tightly knit they were, and then just how young they are. Experiencing something so severe like that is just unbelievable in itself, let alone the rest of the movie. So the way that they handled the just the choreography and the quick cuts and the angles, like I'm pretty sure there was a lot of like dummy bodies that were getting crushed and things like that. There's a lot of different techniques they definitely use for that. But even going back to his other movie, The Impossible, with Ewan McGregor, and the tsunami that happens in that movie, they did like some miniatures, I think, with the town actually getting engulfed with water. And then they did some full-size sets with water crashing over before it like sweeps them. but they're like he's very good at incorporating that practical violent atmosphere, and like there's other moments like in Fallen Kingdom, like Jurassic World, where he has to use a lot of CGI because of dinosaurs, but like this and The Impossible, it's very grounded and it's very terrifying because they're very relatable situations or things that could happen, you know. So it's hard to imagine that, and he did that very well visually. So I like that a lot.
He has the ability to tell an epic story, in like unlike a lot of directors nowadays, without the use of digital. I agree, and there is something to even like the dedicate. Like I watched this movie with my brother, and we were talking about how like when you see the evolution and the transformation of some of the performers in this movie from the beginning of the film, and then you see when they're malnourished after being stuck in the Andes for what, 2 months or a month? It's like a little over a month, right?
I think it's
3 months.
3 months?
Yeah. 3 months.
Is it 3 months? Okay. So, but like,
which is insane.
It's unbelievable to think
and
about.
in dead winter, like freezing temperatures.
On the Andes Mountains.
I
but
can't.
the fact that like the transformation that the actors go through.
Yeah.
And another added layer why I think the performances are so great. They're not even like, they're not polished actors. They're not veteran actors. They haven't been in these crazy sets. They haven't been committed to a lot of things like this. I mean, this is a movie that Liz or Zach, one of you guys I know, had written in the notes. This is an epic movie in terms of scale. 138 days of filming is crazy.
Long.
That's
long.
crazy. And the budget, I can't read euros. What is the budget? It's
65 million.
65 million.
Euros.
So, what does that translate to American dollars?
It's close to it. It's probably like 80 million.
Okay, so
roughly.
it's a big budget movie. And I just there's so much in this movie that I appreciate from a filmmaking perspective that I mean, again, I am such a proponent of like storytelling, like, and how we had a lot of films within 2023 that touched upon these personal stories, and I still haven't had a chance to see Poor Things, which is more of like a fantastical sort of thing. But like I love The Iron Claw, I love Past Lives, these small, quiet things. From a cinematic perspective, this movie like blew me away.
Yeah.
Like there was so much that I was just like, oh my god, this shot, the music. Michael Giacchino with the score, and he was nominated for a Critics' Choice as well, which I'm happy he was recognized for because he's a fantastic composer. And the undertones of this, just the whole time, like, I don't know, there's so much to like about it. But if there's other things that stick out to you, Liz.
No, yeah, I like what I find that he's doing a lot with his films, Bayona, is that some directors tend to lean the way of let the audience imagine the trauma that's happening rather than show it. I feel like he's bordering that line of like, let me show them enough where they're not turning this off, this film.
100%.
But that they're not just bored listening to things. Like, rather than telling us the trauma, he's showing us and pushing that boundary of like almost horror kind of.
Yeah, because it's haunting. Like, a lot of the visuals that you get and the real life things that occurred within this crash, which I know Zach had talked a little bit about, but like these guys have to resort to cannibalism at some point
to survive.
It's awful, but you're right. Like he definitely has the ability to toe that line, which a lot of people don't. Like some people, like with body horror, like it's way too much.
Well, I think it would with other directors, somebody probably like, let's say, like Yorgos probably would have been like, okay, let's focus on the cannibalism and make it like very gory, them having to like eat these bodies, versus some other people would have been like, I don't even want to show it. So let's just say, oh, we have to eat this, but not actually watch them having to do the actual eating.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, I think he just does like trauma scenes very well, because I keep thinking of The Impossible and this film, and they're very similar also, because in The Impossible, I just think of kind of like the plane crash when the tsunami comes in. I just remember Naomi Watts's character getting like hit, and then it's probably a dummy, but he has the body like floating and getting smacked into things, and you just watch like bodies getting trampled and like pushed. And so I think it's an interesting take that he's doing of showing the traumatic events rather than just focusing fully on the aftermath of it. Because I would say arguably one of the most intense, like he starts off pretty intense with the plane crash. Then it kind of dips to just figure out like, okay, there's so many people that died. But then it escalates again into the emotional battle that these people are having of some people want to survive. And so they're going to resort to cannibalism. And then other people are like, morally, I can't do this. So I think it was also a smart screenplay wise to bring in that moral compass, because I think if it was just like, oh yeah, nobody has a problem
like, yeah,
if everybody's like, yeah, let's do it, then
you lose the stakes too.
Yeah, because then there's no combativeness and there's nothing to build off of, while I think it builds the stakes of like these people would die if they didn't do this.
But it's also not overstated. Like it's not like these big like
fight
emotional
scenes.
which I love
Yes.
because there's such a legitimate relationship between all these guys, and Zach, you touched on it a little bit, like, and he does such a good job of establishing that in such a short amount of time that you genuinely believe that these guys are family to one another.
But also they might not have the energy to fight because they're freezing.
Yes.
They're starving and they're probably have PTSD right now. So it's not like they have the bandwidth to have these full-blown arguments.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, again, these are young actors, like fresh actors, to be able to deliver that performance and not over pushing it of like a life or death situation and delivering a very subtle performance. That's tough.
Yeah, I agree. Zach, you had something?
There's also like so there's like 45 team members on this plane, but I felt like a lot of almost every death was incredibly felt, and it was very profoundly deep, that every time a person died there was more and more hopelessness building, because they were like feeling this buildup of, we are going to end up like them if we don't try something. Cannibalism is one of those things. And then throughout the film, they're trying to escape. Like some of them are trying to go on the large journeys. And then they end up camping out on top of the mountains. Like they're going through so much stuff, but they are running out of options. And the whole time I'm like, how many of these people are actually going to survive? Because I didn't know the story before this. So I was like, who is, like, everyone is up for grabs here, that someone could just die. And I really liked how he didn't focus. Well, Liz, I know that you might have a counter to this, but I liked how he didn't focus on one Ethan Hawke character, you know, like one protagonist above all the rest, you know.
I think it made the story more gripping, that you never really knew what was going to happen with all these characters. And I think similar, like, again, despite you having seen the 93 film, like, were you aware of the characters in comparison to the characters from that film when seeing this? Maybe you were, because like I didn't know, like similar to Zach, I didn't know who was going to die, who was going to live, if any of them were going to live. I didn't know much about the story, surprised, because it happened decades before we were born. But
no, just because it'd been so long that I'd seen Alive, so I wasn't aware of like who the actual characters were and like which the connection was. But yeah, so the 1993 one, they definitely focused the script more around Ethan Hawke's character. Who does he play? Nando.
Which...
Nando.
Is he the captain?
Let's see. He is.
I mean, I'm on IMDb and I'm looking at
He
Nando.
is the guy whose sister dies, and he has.
Oh, the guy with the beard.
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
the guy with the beard.
Well, I mean, a lot of them have beards by the
But the
end,
guy with like the black eyes for a look, like the two.
Yeah.
You know the
Yeah.
Is that?
You know what I'm talking
I
about?
thought that.
And
Okay.
he's like injured a lot.
Yes.
In the
Okay.
beginning, yeah.
But then he like eventually gets better, and then he's one of the two people at the end that ends up doing the hike. And so no, I didn't know the characters' names, but a part of me kind of likes the script a little bit more, where it focuses in at least on a few main characters, because I think when you're focusing in on this many characters, it's hard to yes, obviously the story is so traumatic, so you feel for them, but I feel like when you're able to focus in on at least 2 or 3 main characters, you're able to connect the audience to them more and feel and want to fight for them, versus just a broad overall like, oh, I feel for this group. I liked the voiceover, so I liked how they had it coming from one of the...
It was Numa's perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I really liked it. I also loved the tone that they did for that voiceover of making it a very intimate, not like broadcasty voice. It was almost like he was whispering the whole time. It almost was like bordering like ASMR in a way. It was super, I loved it. But I hated the reveal of like, and him just being like, and I died on October, blah, blah, blah. Like, what? So then how, like, he wasn't just writing all this. They didn't have pen and paper with them. So it's like, where, like, linear wise, how is this man telling that story?
I am curious to know. So there are survivors from this story.
So why wouldn't they pick a survivor to tell that story?
What makes me think is that I genuinely believe, I do, and it's in the research that we had done for this film, that Bayona, I mean, really took his time with crafting this movie, and they talked to the survivors and their families over years of time before they decided to make this movie. I'm curious, I don't have the answer to this, but maybe Numa as a person who had died was someone that was more well-spoken and somebody that like had a way with words, and that's why they decided to frame it in that way. Because at the same time, I agree with you. I really appreciated the narration kind of walking us through certain things and the tenderness that kind of counteracts the harrowing nature of what is happening the whole time. But to me, it just added more importance to his character, and I was okay with the fact that he was dying because they play so much into the fact that he believed himself to be such a good person that once he damaged himself, he didn't feel like there was any way that he could help anybody. And at the same time, he helped so many people throughout that whole entire time. It worked for me. I don't know exactly what the answer is. I'm curious if Bayona had said anything in an interview where maybe he decided to frame the narration that way.
I don't know. I wish, and like, you guys might not agree with this, but I kind of wish that it was more of one of the people that survived, and it's them like 40 years after this when they're much older and looking back on this, then voicing over and telling their experience on it. Another thing that I actually preferred for this film versus the other one, the 1993 version ends with them just getting rescued. So the film literally just ends with
so 90s.
Yes.
Wait, you said you liked that?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I liked that they brought them like home. So it literally, 1993 literally ends with the helicopters circling them and them being like, yeah, woo, we're saved. And like, that's
that's
it.
very nice.
Very
nice. No
90s.
payoff there. Yeah.
None. And so I really loved that you got to see them coming back, and the costume and makeup of making them look so gaunt, and like the actual trauma that their bodies went through. It was so good. A part of me kind of wishes that maybe they had spent a little less time on the mountain and a little bit more time in the after, because I had read some things that like when news broke that they had to resort to cannibalism, it was huge. It was
it like changed the perspective of how people thought of the whole entire thing.
Yes, because some people were like, that's just like something's wrong with them. And then some people were like, no, they had to do what they had to do to survive. But then other people were like, they could have done a million other things.
Yeah,
so like,
right.
but maybe that's a whole nother,
no way.
Maybe that's a whole nother movie. Like, I don't know. I kind of wish that if they were going to step into that world, it would open up a whole nother like 45 minutes, I feel like, for
I'm so
this
glad
film.
that they didn't
Really?
do that. Yeah, because I
because
don't know
you think that it comes into commenting on it rather
not
than
only
just telling
that,
the story?
well, not only that, because I'm like so sick of just every single movie having an attachment to a stance. I just don't.
Okay.
I appreciate it, but I do feel like there's too much of an emphasis now where it's like every single thing needs to have an opinion, and it's like, no. Some things you're just trying to tell a story in the best way that you can, and you're trying to tell it from the perspective that you want to tell it
We
from.
don't need to decide if cannibalism is bad or good right
No,
now.
I-
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That's a conversation for off camera. No,
I think
but
it's okay. Like I think it's okay that they didn't do that, only because I think what they're solidifying with the running theme is we are gonna do what we have to do to survive, and a lot of them I don't think anyone on that plane would have done it unless they really had to, and they were all kind of very reluctant to do it, even though some of them were more agreeable in the beginning, but they were all understanding that that was the only way out. So I think if you undo that, not at the end, and then open it up again, it backpedals a little bit on what they were trying to set up the whole movie. So I think it's, as long as it's a consistent theme, or if they took out more of the survival like second act and then they added that as into a longer third act, you could have probably done that. But I think it was already long and extensive enough of that this was about their trauma and their persistence and the human will to survive, instead of like the morality of cannibalism. Because I think everyone can, I hope, universally agree that cannibalism is a bad thing.
Yes.
But we were understanding of the harshness of the situation. So
yeah, I would agree with that. And so I actually found an article that talks a little bit about the framework of using Numa as the device, as the narrator.
Hit me with it.
So they talk about some of what he does narrate, not all of it, but some of what he narrated was in his last will to them, which I guess I don't know.
He must have had a piece of paper.
He must have had something. But it speaks more to the fact that Numa is the one person throughout the whole entire movie is consistent with opposing the act of cannibalism, and it's giving you the perspective of being the one who's forcing the viewers to confront what they might do in order to survive. So it leaves up to interpretation, which I think, again, kind of goes exactly against what you were saying. It's like he clearly does not want to take a stance. He wants to put it on the viewer and have you ask the question, like, morally, like, what would I have done in this situation?
Yeah.
Because, again, like, I think we can all agree cannibalism is wrong, but the harshness of the situation and the fact that we talked a little bit before, like, over 3 months, these guys were trapped in freezing cold, and so many of them died. These men and women, I should say. I apologize. But it just, I appreciated the fact that it asks so many moral questions throughout the fact that these guys are dealing with these situations. And also, we haven't touched a lot on this, but I appreciated so much that, and I don't know if Alive did this, there's like moments of like humor where like they're losing their minds, but they're still like reminiscing on what they want their lives to be when they return home.
Yeah.
And that's another part of it where it's like, I'm so glad that Bayona talked to the survivors, because I would have to imagine some of those conversations are authentic and those are real things that they dealt with. How did you guys feel about that part of it? Was it like eerie to you, or did like...
No, I enjoyed that because it show that they also weren't like losing their minds in a way, that they were still people that saw hope at the end of it. I also think it highlighted that this specific experience would probably have been a total different story if it was a plane of random people that didn't know each other versus this team that already had a love and family connection. I think that's what ended up helping them all survive too, is that they already had a foundation with each other of trust and knowing that they're looking out for each other.
That's a great point, actually. Yeah. I didn't think about it like that.
Versus like, could you imagine if this was just a plane of like random people?
Like
it would have, literally like Lost. It would have just been
all. It would have led to more conflict.
Yes,
more people just being like, no, like you don't. This is my family. I'm like I'm doing it. What I want to do. Versus this was like, we're a team. We were a team before. Let's figure out how to work as a team. And they immediately go into action.
Oh, I know, which is crazy. There's so no moment of like, what just happened? We need to talk about this. It's like, all right, survival.
That was the one thing that, not that I like, I don't know, like, I'm now I kind of want to go back and watch a documentary on this as well. But like, not that I didn't believe it, but it was like the fact that these men and women were so smart at such a young age. And there were some that were older people on the plane, but the team in general is ages 20 to 24, 25. That they just sprung into action like that. And it was crazy to see.
I feel like, and this is me coming at our generation, I feel like all of us wouldn't know what to do
We
because
would
we're
be
so
so
used to Google.
fucked.
I'd literally be like, my phone doesn't work. I don't know how to Google to fix a radio. I can't do this. Versus like these people, they didn't have that. So they spent their time learning how to do this on their spare time so that they knew how to do it. We would be fucked. We wouldn't know how to do it.
We'd be screwed.
Yeah. Also, they knew which way.
Zach
like
would be okay.
Zach would be fine.
I was thinking
Zach
about
would-
it, man. I would get some bullshit. Like my fucking chair would go right through my leg or something. I'd be
would just be-
paralyzed. I'd be like, I'm out.
Yeah,
Like, I
I'm
can't
done.
do shit for you. And then
But it's like basic survival instincts that I don't think anybody thinks about today, or at least not in like where we're from. Is like even just them knowing that like, oh, that way is north, and like Chile is that way, and I know where we are.
I'm like literally geographically challenged.
I could probably figure it out based off the sun,
afraid
but
to say
also
it.
being in an area that you've never been in before. It's not like they're visiting these mountains on a daily.
Yes.
So they're like, oh, I've been here before. I know where to go. The fact that they just have an awareness of it. I mean, that's, I couldn't.
It's crazy.
another one of my favorite things was when they first tried to signal the plane that flew over and they weren't reaching it, and they had mirrors and stuff, and I was like, that was smart. And then after that they were like, why didn't it see us or report us? And then they climb the mountain and they see how small they are in the mountains. I was like, wow, that was a great use of perspective filmmaking too, because it's
100%.
like, you know, they're completely engulfed in these Andes mountains. So it was
like
really
legitimate explanation to things
Yes.
that make
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Like, and that again, the care that was put into this movie,
Mhm.
and this is no. I think all the performances are really, really great, but such an the directing job in this movie from JA Bayona to me is so next level that it's like I just wish he wasn't pigeonholed into doing shitty Jurassic World movies. Like I haven't seen any of the Jurassic World movies, but I don't.
You don't need to.
He doesn't need to do that. Like, and a Monster Calls, which is unfortunately the only movie of his that I had seen previously to this, was one of my favorite movies.
You
of
haven't
that
seen The
year.
Impossible?
No, I haven't seen The Impossible.
You
I
would
know.
love it.
need
I
to.
know, I haven't seen it.
It's
I
on
have
this
to see it.
level. It's intense.
Yeah, and that's with Ewan McGregor and Naomi
Yeah.
Watts and Tom
Holland's
right?
starting
Early
out.
Tom
A baby
Holland's.
Tom
Baby Tom
Holland.
But and a Monster Calls is something that is so different in terms of what the material is and what the story is, but the relationships with human beings in what he can still make like that is like a fantasy story. A Monster Calls. It's like based on, I think, like a child's not like a YA novel or something like that. But this is based on a true story and still the epic filmmaking perspective. And you had listed on here that he did the first 2 episodes of Rings of Power, which I never watched. But the fact that Amazon would put something that is costing them hundreds of millions of dollars into his hands and just being like, run with it, is a true testament to like how incredible the direction of a director he is.
Yeah.
So I loved his direction in this, and so many of the sequences. We talked about the plane crash, the avalanche, multiple avalanche sequences.
Oh my God. The like direction, also just the camera work of making you feel so claustrophobic of when that snow came in and feeling like these people were actually being suffocated underneath. Just, I mean, gorgeous, but also horrifying.
Immediately felt claustrophobic.
Yeah.
I
And the
was
sound work
so
on
bad.
it, like to
Yeah,
hear
the sound is fantastic.
Yeah,
in the movie,
it's
too.
incredible. Also, I just want, like, I read something that they filmed like at the actual location, some of these shots, and that it wasn't that cold. It was probably like 60 degrees, I think they said. And so some of these actors, like being able to embody the movement of having like frostbite, freezing to death, having that hunger pain. I mean, it's really great core acting work that they're doing, and I'm just really blown away that some of these people have never acted before.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me. Zach, do you have something?
Yeah, going back to the sound design too, I really love the part where I think it was earlier in the movie where the 3 or 4 of them went up on the mountain and they were looking for the first time to see if they were close to any city, and then they get stuck up in the blizzard.
Oh, they're freezing together.
Yeah,
right?
they're freezing, and then they're all like huddled together because that's the only way to stay warm, and they didn't even know if that would work.
Yeah.
But then they're like basically glued together with frozen to each other, and then the sun comes up and it like defrosts them, which was really cool with the filmmaking too. And then you just hear like all of the like when they're like ripping apart.
Yeah.
And,
I thought he was losing an eye, dude.
Mhm.
Yeah,
When he opened up his eyes.
exactly. And
Oh
the
my
makeup
God.
was great too.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
mhm.
The fact that oh my God.
Yeah.
The technical level of this movie, I think, is so next level. But the makeup and the hairstyling in this, and again, like the dedication, you clearly see that these men are malnourished throughout this whole entire time.
Yeah.
And you see them deteriorating day by day. Oh my God, it's so next level. It's so
It's
good.
crazy. They
It's
start
so
off
good.
looking kind of more like 20, like some of them look older than their characters really are, but they all look pretty young 20s. And then by the end of it, they look like they're in their mid 40s,
Yeah.
like 50s, just because of how like the hair being grown out, just like your cheeks completely gone and like pulled in, like the severe chapped lips. Also the makeup is incredible. Also like the scabs that some of them had, they look
my
so
God,
real. The scab, ew, so gross.
That was the only
but,
scene I
like,
had to look away.
Did you?
But yeah. It was
like I said, it's not a
scabs.
snacking movie.
No, it's not.
definitely not popcorn.
No, it's not.
I also really liked when they came home and they were getting rushed into the hospital and they were all kind of in robes again and they were
Mhm.
showering and like you see like the dirt come off of them
I
and
know.
like they were trying to get food for the first time. A lot of them just they had the scabs and like wounds and the beards, like everything was very like detailed and thorough, and as it should have been. Like he's very good at that and giving that realism to the sense of the movie. So,
100%.
yeah.
And I love the photography too.
Yeah.
I
Oh, the
love how
pictures?
they take the picture right before they take off.
Mhm.
And then towards the end of when they get picked up, before they know that they're getting rescued. But
Pictures.
yeah, he wants to take pictures of all of them, and he's like,
remember
"Smile,
it.
you idiot!" I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah, it was
know,
a really cool
because they
a really
like
cool touch.
they knew, they're like, okay, we're gonna get out of here eventually. I don't know how they knew, but they were
the
holding on.
perseverance and the things that
crazy.
these people had to overcome throughout this time is really remarkable.
I do have one fact that I think both films don't do.
Okay.
So in the end, when they got saved, only one helicopter came, is something that I read,
Okay.
and they could only take like half the people back,
And then came back for
and
the
then
others?
came back the next day. So like half of them, they had to decide like, okay, who goes and who's gonna stay one more night here. And I guess like some of them were like fearful that they were like, what if
Yeah,
they
that's so
what if they
terrifying.
forget like where we are, or like what if something happens and like they don't come back?
Oh my
After
God.
all
I
that
would have
too,
fought
yeah.
to been on that. I would have been like, I'm going.
Talk about a
I'm not-
moment when you're no longer family with
No,
your rugby
well,
team.
absolutely.
You're like, no
I feel like
fucking
at that
way are you getting on
point,
that
no way.
helicopter.
At that point, I feel like you just have to like play rock paper scissors or
Oh
something.
my God. That's so
Yeah.
crazy. That is a crazy fact.
That's crazy though. Like, why wouldn't they bring
that.
2 helicopters? What-
They probably were still looking for them. I don't know.
Well, no, 'cause
Or maybe they
had-
don't want to, like, I do. There is a moment, which I actually did appreciate too, again, in terms of kind of show, don't tell. But they show the head of, I guess, like the aviation, like, and he gets the call.
Yeah.
And he puts the phone down, and there's a moment where he obviously is going to try to do this rescue mission, but part of him is probably like, what if we fucking crash? Like, what if we go in there and this rescue, because they say, and this is another detail, and again, the details, like you said, Zach, the research, so great. The first radio call, when he goes, no, and he freaks out, and they
Yeah.
say that there had been 32 reported crashes in the Andes and no survivor had ever been found previously. And they were looking for 72 hours with 16 different search and rescue missions for these people on the plane. Is, again, just, it puts you in a place where you're like, oh my, I could not even imagine.
And they call it
hearing
off.
Yes,
they call it off.
They call it
the
off
search.
because they're like, we'll have to wait until
the new year.
Call is out.
The call's out
Spring.
on October 13th.
Yeah. They have
That's
to wait till
insane.
spring.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
So crazy. Oh my God. But yeah, so there's that moment with him. I'm curious if maybe that's why they did it. Or
Maybe.
like,
It's in real life.
but I don't know. But I mean, for the fact that there's so much authenticity in the story, I mean, I can overlook that little thing in comparison to.
Do you guys think you would have survived?
No fucking way. No way.
Zach?
It would have been tight. I don't know.
Yeah, I would have done my best to persevere, but I don't know how that would have worked.
I feel like
I don't do good in the studio long enough when we're
True, right? I feel like I would have been one of those people that's like, I can't just sit here. I'm going to start walking, and if I freeze to death out there, oh well.
Yeah,
I don't think I could have
I might
just
have been.
like stayed
I
sitting
think
there.
they were going to. Like that was if they didn't get that last radio contact.
Yeah.
I think they were all like, well, we're just gonna do it.
Yeah,
If
at this
we run out of
point,
food, we're gonna
Let's
try
just
it.
we're gonna do
And I
it.
think the two guys too who went, they were like, fuck it, we're gonna try it. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna do it. So
Yeah.
that was important.
I want to give shout outs to the 4 people that I mean, again, I think everyone's really good in this, but the 4 characters that stood out most to me, Numa, which is played by Enzo. I'm going to do my best. I might butcher a lot of these names.
Go for it.
Numa's played by Enzo Vogrinchich. Nando was played by Agustin Pardella. Roberto was played by Matthias Recall. And Javier, who was the older gentleman who has such a fantastic scene with Numa talking about when the plane crash happens.
Yeah.
Played by Esteban Bigliardi. I mean, again, a lot of these people are new and fresh actors, and everybody does such a fantastic job within the movie. But those 4 in particular were standouts to me. And I would like to see all these young actors get roles not only in their own native language, but I'd love to see some of them transition over to some American productions as well, similar to like how we saw with White Lotus, and like Simona Tabasco is somebody that like I'm really looking forward to seeing what she does next because I loved her in White Lotus. Like I would love to see some of these gentlemen also get roles going forward. I thought the acting was so good, and I think the direction definitely benefited the fact that there was so much. I can't even imagine the rehearsal process of what they all went through too, because of a production of this scale and size with a lot of unknowns, like 138 days of filming. I mean, the movie filmed from January to beginning of January to the end of April in 2022 in Severa, Nevada, in Spain, Montevideo, Uruguay, Chile, and Argentina, as well as the actual crash site in the Andes. So big production. It's a really good movie. Are we ready for scores? Do we have anything else we wanted to highlight?
Yeah.
I'm ready for scores.
Zach, you got anything else?
No.
We touched about a lot. We talked a lot about the movie.
Yeah.
I'll start. This I am happy because previously I was talking to both you guys and I was like, I'm not sure if this is going to get an Oscar nom, but I did check that it actually got nominated for Best Film Not in the English Language at the BAFTAs. It got nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the Critics' Choice, as well as Best Foreign Language at the Golden Globes. And Michael Giacchino also got Best Score nom at Critics' Choice, which is sick. But I don't think that's going to happen for the Oscars. But I hope it gets nominated. It's a very tough year with foreign films, with Anatomy of a Fall and Monster and Zone of Interest. So don't know if it has much of a shot to win. But if I was putting this in my 2023 films, it would be very high on my list.
Do you think it would be in your top 10?
It would absolutely be in my top 10.
Wow.
Because my score is a 9.5.
Wow.
So very, I absolutely, I thought this movie was remarkable. It was like something that I haven't seen before. And I just loved everything about it. I really hope Bayona like doesn't go back to Jurassic World. Like I just want to see him do more things like this, whether it's in his native language or for U.S. audiences. I just think he's such an interesting filmmaker, and I'm curious to see what else he does next. But yeah, this was, I mean, it's for a January release on Netflix in 2024. Year's off to a great start. I really love this movie. So 9.5 is my score.
Zach?
Yeah, I'm gonna match it with a 9.5.
Oh, let's go!
Yeah, it's like it's really, really good, and has a lot to say just about the emotional undertone with their characters and stuff. And if they mismanaged that part of it, it would have been just another survival movie. You know, like there's some very hollow survival movies, but this one has a lot to say about what they went through, the circumstances, and the filmmaking. Like it was just really well done, and I can't imagine another interpretation, at least for a very long time, to outdo it. So you know, it's really good.
I'm close, but I'm not as high with you guys. I'm gonna do a 9.
Okay,
Still
I
good.
thought you were gonna go a little lower than that, so I'm happy.
I
with
was
that
teetering 8.5, but then I was like, the sound for me, I never noticed sound, and so the fact that I appreciate this, it pushes it up for me. The one thing that, again, I just didn't love who they chose as the narrator.
score. Okay, That's fair.
Still, it's a good score, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Really high score.
And I will say the time run didn't bother me.
I was just gonna ask.
It didn't bother me on
Okay,
this
and
one.
it's a lengthy movie.
It's a long
2
one.
hours and 24 minutes, but it totally earns every single minute.
Yeah.
I think.
I think there's
Anyway.
a few minutes that it drags a little bit, but I
There's no
wouldn't
way.
cut it. I wouldn't cut it because it shows how long they were there for.
Okay, it's fair.
So they should have included it in the movie.
Yeah, the runtime I would leave it. There were some moments where I
queen of
was
run
like,
times.
okay, let me look
Yo, we
at.
gotta make some. We
I
gotta
want.
Make some,
Liz,
we gotta
I
make
just-
some Queen of Runtimes merch.
Yeah.
I think.
I just want
Guys,
to
let
see
us
you
know in the
edit a
comments
film,
if you want
please.
Queen of Runtimes merch.
I should have
That
been.
is
I should have been
so
an editor. Why didn't I go to school
Well,
for
that's
that?
what I'm
Should've.
saying. Like, I want to see you edit a film and like that.
Can you
Like, I
imagine it's
just
really
want-
bad though? Like
Oh,
you guys
boy.
are like, Liz, we don't know what's
We're
happening.
gonna review it on the channel.
Like we don't know what's happening. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but it's under 2 hours.
So that's all that matters.
Oh man. Well, obviously we all love this movie. We gave it a really high score. All of us 9 or above. So if you guys are still watching this at this point because you guys had watched the film and you're listening to our review, let us know in the comments what you guys thought. What would your score be for Society of the Snow? Really great piece of filmmaking. I mean, it's great to be 3 weeks into the new year and have a film of this caliber that we can talk about. Very curious to see where it ends up on our end of the year list next year because this is very early to be giving out these kinds of scores, but it's a great movie. If you guys can, be sure to give this video a like. You guys can subscribe. We are the Culture Wave Media Network. You guys can hit that bell for alerts. We have new videos coming out pretty much every day for you guys. We're also on social media. If you guys want to follow us at Cinema Wave Media, we're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're also on Threads, and we're on Facebook. We have a blog where you guys can check out news articles full length if you guys want to see that as well. _ Culture Wave Media and at Jersey's Finest Pod on Instagram as well. Just signing off. I am Darian Scalamoni.
I am Liz Seiko.
I'm Zach Miller.
And we'll see you guys next time.